of attorney to sell the property. Each transaction is unique. Let the professionals at Security Title use our experience to facilitate a secure closing. We are here to help.
A group of primary care doctors is recommending that every child in the U.S. aged 8 and up be screened for anxiety.
The U.S. Preventative Services Task Force, a team assembled by Health and Human Services, is saying anxiety is the most common mental health condition in children and youth. It may be triggered by interparental conflict, parent overprotection, parental separation, or even poverty. The task force says doctors should screen for anxiety in children even if there are no noticeable symptoms. Anxiety is usually characterized by excessive fear or worry. Children who suffer from anxiety may have trouble sleeping at night. They may get stomach aches or headaches frequently, and some won't eat properly. Jill Nato, Fox News.
Prosecutors in Baltimore have dropped charges against Adnan Syed in the 1999 killing of Hae Min Lee, whom Syed had dated, after additional DNA testing excluded him as a suspect in the case that was chronicled by the podcast Serial. Syed spent 23 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit. Jury deliberations begin in the morning for the jury that must decide if the admitted school shooter, Nicholas Cruz, deserves to be executed for his crimes. The Supreme Court declined to hear Dylan Roof's bid to overturn his conviction and death sentence for fatally shooting 9 black people at a church in Charleston in 2015. A landscape worker in Northern California has died a gruesome death.
Police sent out an email saying, in part, Menlo Park police officers responding to the 900 block of Peggy Lane on the report of a tree trimmer who fell into a chipper. When police units arrived on scene, a male subject was found deceased from injuries sustained from the accident, close quote. And we believe instead of falling into the chipper, we believe this man was pulled into the chipper since it has a top on it, which would make it difficult to fall inside. So it looks like he may have been pulled or sucked into the chipper for some reason.
It's reporter Gary James of Fox 2 in San Francisco. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News.
We're already Pika's best radio station,
and we want to keep it that way. Voting for Pika's best radio station is on and underway. If you've already voted for The Point, thank you. If not, there's still time to get yours in. We're honored that many of you have nominated us again, and we'll keep looking for ways to keep you informed, up to date, and entertained. Fox News, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie and all the great talk shows from around the USA. Tell a friend and share your votes with all The Point's super advertisers. Thanks from all the stations of Choice Broadcasting.
Are you looking for a new place to hang out with your friends? Let's go along the sidelines at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Located at 154 Iriarte Road, Unit 4 and 5 in Tamuning behind Royal Bigs. Sidelines, a hidden gem with nothing but great things to offer. Great atmosphere, great food, top shelf drinks, and a great team. What are we waiting for? Let the fun begin at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Open daily from 3 p.m. to 2 a.m. See you there.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
Hoffa? What do you mean you aren't registered to vote? I'm telling you, if you don't register soon, you'll lose your voice in how our island is run. Lucky for you, Action Pack has a dope voter registration party called Hard Rock the Vote at the Hard Rock Cafe on October 14 from 7 p.m. to midnight. The only way to get in is with proof of voter registration. Check Action Pack Guam on Facebook and IG for details. Oh, and hey, on Election Day, make sure to vote. Voting is a vibe.
It's your turn to take action. Join Action Pack at actionpackguam.com.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Welcome, everybody, to another edition, Tuesday edition, of this week of Tall Tales. I'm your host, Jose Martinez. In the production booth is Daryl Taggerty. Good afternoon, Daryl.
Good afternoon, Jose.
Good to see you. You know, we have a short show today, or not a short show. We're still going to do the regular hours, but
really,
I think we're gonna. I want to go into the senator and the candidates' responses to the post. Was it the post or the PDN? I can't remember which candidate, which it is.
Which rag?
Which rag was it? PDN, I think it was, right? Or was it the Post? Let's see here. Anyways, the Pacific Daily News.
I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, it's gonna. I don't know if there's gonna be anything new that I talk about, but I might make some people triggered.
Okay.
I like doing that.
Okay.
I'm just trying people to call in and sound off. But right now, let's go to Jemmy Cutney. Jemmy Cutney, Press the Meat, Meet the Press. It's our version of going over some of the editorials that happen in our local paper. Today, we have another milk toast. It's not bad. It's just another PSA.
Yeah, but just one, right?
It's just
like,
one.
We can't go over editorials.
No, just editorial. But we'll also read a letter to the editor, which I think was pretty cool, which is actually a good template for an editorial. Our view, discover. Training opportunities available, learn skills, get employed. The landscape of the job market and the workplace has changed significantly over the past decade. Most dramatically over the past 2 years, as life in general changed drastically. Working from home dominated workforce operations, highlighting shortfalls and inadequacies in critical areas like the more physical, hands-on service industries. These changes have forced many to explore jobs and careers outside of their comfort zone as positions were furloughed and employee hours were cut to help businesses simply survive the chain reaction of economic hardship. Unfortunately, the challenges of a slow economy are still being felt worldwide, and even more so here at home as Guam's main economic power source struggles to find its footings in a competitive global tourism industry. Gainful employment is still difficult to find, and the diminished buying power of foreign currencies, inflation, and the increased cost of basic necessities everywhere slow tourism recovery efforts. The opportunities to make an adequate living wage to support a family are limited, but they are out there. The government and local employers have continuously shared invitations for job fairs, educational programs, and skill training programs. In these difficult times, it's necessary for work-ready adults to explore every chance to secure an income, especially through opportunities that offer educational training resulting in certifications and guaranteed employment. That's pretty good. Guaranteed employment.
Unless it's the government guaranteeing employment.
Once you're employed, you're guaranteed to stay there forever. We live in a time that beckons,
the last round, right?
Right. We live in a time that beckons us to realize that careers with six-figure paychecks for everyone simply aren't realistic, as even those with advanced degrees aren't immune to today's financial woes. Now is the time to step out of the comfort zone and explore opportunities like the bus driver boot camp or any of the training programs offered frequently by the Guam Community College. These programs are pathways to growth and experience that come with the added benefit of immediate employment opportunities in the government and private sector upon successful completion.
Government?
Government. Yep. We encourage anyone who is willing to learn a skill to secure a steady income through these financially trying times to check out the Bus Driver Boot Camp program or any of the opportunities available at the American Job Center. We're calling 671-475-7000. Bus Driver Boot Camp. They should revisit that for some of the current bus drivers. And we want to thank them for taking their time to drive our kids to school every day.
But
it's not.
It's a very responsible job.
Yeah, but it's something that's something that I've been watching a lot on the road is they don't seem to be very responsible when they're on the road. I'm not saying all of them, but I'm sometimes not fearful for my life, but really concerned when I'm driving near a school bus these days. It used to be a concern because I didn't want the kids making faces at me, laughing at the old man behind the wheel. Because, not saying that I used to do that, but lately I've seen buses passing cars that are already going 10 miles over the speed limit, and I'm like, how number one, how does a bus have that much pickup or
it's
to
a
do
truck.
that? Yeah, sometimes, most of the time, they're empty, and then I see buses also doing things that. Taking turns and doing some things that are a little bit risky.
Buses by themselves
School
without
buses.
a driver?
Well, I can't see the driver, and they're usually in cahoots with SUVs.
There is an operator, a vehicle
Right.
operator responsible for every vehicle.
Sometimes I
on
see
the road.
bus drivers driving buses radically, and so the boot camp thing is nice. You're going to offer positions and jobs, but let's make sure this boot camp is also a part of a safety program, and to realize that I know that people drive on Guam the way people drive on Guam. It's an
the boot
OG.
camp.
However, when you're a bus driver, it ought to be a different kind of mentality. Understand that your position. Now, most of these bus drivers also, I don't know what they do during the day when school is out. Do they get paid for sitting around waiting for school to?
They wash the buses down. They have
wash
to
them.
have those buses
Yeah.
clean.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what the kids have been doing.
So it's also a bus wash boot camp, but again, these are not all the bus drivers, but today I had the experience watching a bus drive through a construction zone with active guys with flags telling them to slow down. The speed limit was 25, and the guy definitely was going over. Well, no, it went down to 15 miles per hour, and he was definitely
15.
going 25 miles, maybe a little over. And that's not acceptable to me. And this is not the first time I see things like that. But if you really are looking for a job, the number here, 671-475-7000 is American Job Center. And
when you said here, I thought you were going to give them the choice broadcasting number.
I do want to read a letter to the editor. I was going to put in a card as stake holder in parentheses versus human trafficking parentheses drive-by Jack. And Jack, if you're hearing me, you're listening, you know why I'm going to read this. This letter is from a Charles D. Stake, a retired federal attorney and a resident of Barrigada. Media continues to report foreign nationals landing by boat in remote locations in Guam. Apparently, these individuals initially entered the U.S. legally with valid documentation through a valid port of entry in Saipan. However, because of the invasive nature of their entry into Guam, it is likely that their visas have expired or do not cover work beyond Saipan. If this is the case, they are now undocumented. The term illegal immigrant includes those who enter the U.S. without inspection, as well as those who entered with a legal visa that is no longer valid. Apparently, their entry into Guam via Pago Bay and other remote locations is considered a misdemeanor under local Guam law. The Illegal Immigration Reform and Responsibility Act of 1996 provides that illegal immigrants are subject to removal proceedings for most crimes, including misdemeanors. Employers who knowingly employ workers without work authorization are subject to fines and criminal penalties. Undocumented workers are particularly vulnerable to labor trafficking. A serious crime, labor trafficking, is the recruitment, harboring, transportation, provision, or obtaining of a person for labor or his services through the use of force, coercion, or fraud for the purpose of subjection to involuntary servitude, peonage, or slavery. A common ruse is debt security or debt bondage, which requires a person to pledge his or her services, but the value of the services are not reasonably applied to the liquidation of the debt. Also, the length and nature of the service is not limited or specifically determined. Another abuse undocumented workers are susceptible to is coercion through threatened misuse of the legal process. Anyone with tips or information can call the National Human Trafficking Hotline at 1-888-373-7888. The U.S. Attorney has authority to enforce, administer, and interpret immigration law. Local officials with detailed information concerning immigration crimes can present that information to a federal grand jury. And that is an editorial or a letter to the editor from Mr. Charles D. Stake. And I really appreciate that because, you know, we were talking about immigration or these seemingly undocumented immigrants landing upon the shores here on Guam. We heard stories last week of fishermen seeing them come up on Pago Bay. We've heard stories of them landing all over the place. I remember about 10 or so years ago, 12 years ago, where a boat washed up on shore just south of Arunau, and it remained there for a while, and they knew that there was illegal immigrants that came through. I think they picked up a couple of them. We saw a smaller boat washed up on shore just this summer, right? And
yes, down in Tumon Bay.
Yeah, and just stayed there. And it might seem like a little thing, and some people also made light of the fact that they could be spies for China, because the majority of these, if not all of these, that have been captured recently are of Chinese descent or
Right.
nationalists. However, this thing about human trafficking, you know, it's not just about the sex industry. You know, we talk about that all the time, and even females. It's also the labor industry and the illegal labor industry where they bring in laborers. They don't have to pay them what they usually pay legal citizens or legal immigrants. There's no liabilities in the sense that you don't have to take care of all the usual stuff you take care of a regular employer because they're not documented. So you just pay them for what they do, and
if you pay them, maybe they already
right.
owe. There was a federal law enforcement vehicle that was exiting the Tokcha Cemetery when I was driving this afternoon down in that area. I thought that was pretty curious, but apparently there are patrols going on.
Oh, interesting.
Along the beaches. So.
Local
Federal.
authorities? Oh, federal authorities. Okay.
Federal law enforcement.
Very interesting. So, I mean, it's probably gotten, it's probably gotten to that point where they have to do something where they were not really, or didn't seem like they were doing anything, and our local executive administration didn't want to do anything, or said our hands are tied, or this is not my job. Making a lot of excuses, but this is a serious issue because we're not just talking about people on a 3-hour tour landing on an island.
No,
they don't know.
This is actually
these are intentional.
An international border.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So it's really supposed to be a federal response.
Right. So yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Stake, for your contribution. In the green room, we have Frenchie, who wants to talk about bus drivers and a little bit about the non-LGT debating, along with the CA. See, I balanced it there for you, Daryl. Good afternoon, Frenchie. How you doing?
Good afternoon. How are you? Yeah, I wanted to call yesterday about those debates, but I was not able to do so. But for the bus drivers, I will confirm what you were saying earlier. When I live on the mainland, I had a bus driver license because I had a very large RV that necessitated to get my bus license in order to drive it. So commercial license. And actually something very interesting happened when I moved to Guam. Normally you transfer your license to the similar license by Guam. And they didn't give me a commercial license. They gave me something for driving Jeeps and stuff like that. I didn't mind at the time. But then I met several people that came from the mainland that wanted to be bus drivers because that's what they were doing on the mainland. And they couldn't. They had to retake their license on Guam because apparently the union that controls the bus drivers and it's run by the government here. There are no private bus companies that do school transportation. They don't want to have drivers coming from outside of the island. So I thought, wow, that's strange at the time. But then I also know that bus drivers have to follow federal law on bus driving, and there are a lot of things that they are not following. I doubt that the Department of Education has GPS on the buses, and they certainly do not check the speed. I'm like you. I have been driving at 45, 50 miles an hour on Marine Corps Drive on the right lane and being passed like buses going over 65 miles an hour. And there is no way buses should drive that fast on Guam, especially when they have children on board. They are they are not following federal law as far as deploying their lights. They're supposed to put their warnings on and then deploy their red lights when they stop for children. Sometimes the children are still crossing and they are already restarting their bus and taking the lights off, and you have traffic coming in and out. The drivers of buses on Guam are a disgrace to the professional drivers that drive. And frankly, if I was, thank God I'm not a parent, because I would be very worried about having my kids on a bus where the drivers are not following the law. They travel with windows open and front doors open, which is against federal law. You have to have your front door closed when you have children on board. They are doing all kinds of things. They do California rolls at stop sign, which is a big no-no. You know, I mean, it's on, and there is nobody checking. Most bus department, school bus department, have inspectors that are usually former police department retirees that go and check that the buses follow the rules, and if the buses do not follow the rules, they get written up. But as we know, on Guam, government employees are not being held accountable about almost anything. Actually, they get rehired when they get fired a lot of time. You know, we saw a case last spring, where that lady dropped a kid at the wrong spot, or the kid was not even supposed to be on her bus. And I think she was thrown under the bus because she didn't belong to the group of the in crowd. So there are a lot of things to be worried about bus drivers on the island.
Yeah,
that's for sure. And the first thing they should do, I think the police department should issue citation, because they are really not for. When you see people drive on Guam, which is a special thing, because most people have no clue not to stay on the left lane when they're going slow, but they're going to turn left in 2 miles, so they're scared of missing the turn, so they stay on the left lane, and you have 50 cars behind them trying to not pass them on the right lane. So, but you're talking about the safety of school-age children, and this is nothing to laugh about. And frankly, the standard, the lack of enforcement, and what I also found out by accident when I transferred my license is that they do not, and maybe some senator should look into it, they do not give you the license. Now, it's not a big for me, it was not a big deal because I no longer have my RV that I'm driving. I was driving all over the Midwest to go hunting. But when I wanted to go 3 years ago before the pandemic to drive again, I didn't have the right license, and I couldn't do it. And it's because somehow at the DMV, there is something fishy going on. Well, beside the fact that they are totally inefficient in running licenses and everything, the bus driver license, and I heard from a third party again, truck driver license also coming from the mainland, do not get their transfer done. And then instead of canceling your old driver license from the state you're coming from by cutting a corner of it, they take it and they say they're returning to the state. I checked with my state of origin and said we never get any license returned by another state. So there is a lot of BS there that if there is, let's say if Ken Leon Guerrero gets elected to senator, maybe he needs to look into it.
The class of driver's license is what you're talking about, which should be, I would think, states are different with the way that they handle licenses, but usually when you have something like a trucking or a busing license, they're pretty compatible because a lot of trucks, cross state lines. Including RVs.
Every commercial license you have to follow. Those are federal enforcement.
Okay.
Because you have to be, in order to be certified in your state, you have to take all the tests. And even if you are not personally a commercial driver and you have to get a commercial license because of the type of vehicle that you're going to drive. And it happens, for example, farmers can get a bus license to go with their combines on the roads and things like that. But if they want to drive a semi to transport their own grain between different parts of their farm and they are on the road, they need a commercial semi license. And so the feds are actually very strict about how they enforce this. Guam seems to be doing it by the seat of their pants. So I don't know what's behind it, if it's a TASI issue or whatever.
And it's not just about finding it. Frenchie, hang on. Don't go away. I want to go to a real quick break, and then we'll get to the part 2 of your call, part 2. Yep. And then I have drive-by in the green room because he says I called him out, which I did, but in a good way. Don't do a usual drive-by. Stay on the line. We'll be right back with more Tall Tales here on KUSG 93.3 FM. The Point.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training, every morning on The Ray Gibson Show.
Does your physical workplace have an impact on the mental outlook of workers, their overall job satisfaction, and their productivity? I'm Jerry Roberts, and at 7:20 a.m. on The Ray Gibson Show, we'll talk about that and what you might want to do about it. It's The Extra Point here on 93.3.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point by Jerry Roberts at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts on The Ray Gibson Show on 93.3 The Point.
Choice Broadcasting introduces their unbeatable lineup of morning show.
Hands down winners of Guam's morning radio battle.
Daryl Lizama grooves his way through Boss 104 playing Guam's favorite classic hits.
Morning Mouth Ray Gibson shakes the cage on 93.3 The Point.
And now, we are proud to announce the Morning Blender with Kyle Mandapat, mixing it up at sunrise on Star 101.
If you're an advertiser trying to reach the most valuable ears, we've got the shows that listeners have been tuning into for decades.
One call gets all three.
671-888-7346. That's 888-RGIO.
Now, more Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie. Spitting truth like watermelon seeds at a summer picnic. Call now, 888-TALK, 888-8255.
And we're back here on Tall Tales. My name is Jose. In the break, if you're watching the stream on Facebook or on YouTube, you saw a picture of a tailgater with an I'm a Tailgater t-shirt. His name is Tomas. and they. Boss, I can't get your picture into the Rogues Gallery for right now. So you're going to be doing a solo event coming up when we do play the Rogues Gallery. Right now, I want to continue with part 2 with Frenchie, and Drive-By Jack is in the green room. Frenchie, you want to talk about the debates?
Yesterday, you kind of covered the debate or lack of debate at the governor level, and I wanted to comment on that. And it looks like a typical false narrative from the Leon Guerrero Cook campaign, because they propose all kind of debates, knowing very well that the Camacho Ida would not take the bite on a couple of them, especially the ones with the pro-independence people and so on. It was a non-starter. Then they're taking the excuse of the Camacho Ida refusing to debate a couple of them to say, well, if you don't debate all of them, we won't debate any of them. And it's a false excuse. They set it up knowing that the Republican would not want to debate under certain circumstances. Usually, campaigns kind of disagree on debates, and they usually find an amicable center where it's about who the interviewer is or the venue or things like this. But there, it sounds like the governor really doesn't want to debate, and I understand that because Leon Guerrero Cook does not want a large election turnout. If she wants to win without any opposition, she needs a low turnout like she did in the primary. Because her people are going to go vote. If the other people don't show up to vote, she will be reelected without opposition, and Camacho will lose. But if Camacho is able to get the vote out, then it will be a tight race, which Camacho can win, and that would be. It is always difficult to run against incumbent governor. I think it only happened once or twice on Guam where incumbent governor didn't win. We would have to ask McNitch about that. But it's very interesting how it's been framed. And especially when, I don't know if you watched yesterday, Candid News did an excellent report. I mean, I think it's part 1 of 3 about the governor and the Bank of Guam.
I did watch that, yes.
And I think it should be front page on all the newspaper, but I think the governor is going to try everything to silence this report. And it raised very serious questions that have so far been unanswered by Adelup and by the Bank of Guam.
And no questions from other media as well, which is interesting.
No question. And I think we need to raise it up. Why is it that the Post and the PNC are not covering it? KUAM is not covering it. So I think, people need to start writing to the editors and say, why are you not? This is an important question for the campaign. We have possibly, it's not been proven yet, but possibly shenanigans about the financing of the federal money and the deposit in the Bank of Guam accounts, and with the governor making a lot of money, she and her family making a lot of money with the federal fund that the delegate San Nicolas was able to get for Guam.
And even if there isn't any impropriety, and I'm not saying there is or isn't, it's not what they're saying, it's what they're not saying.
So far, it's none of the things that's been talked about.
Nothing's being said. Yep.
Which makes it very interesting on why the government doesn't want to comment on it if nothing has been done that is illegal. But being illegal and not, how would you say, not moral,
Ethical?
There is or ethical. Then there is also a big step to take. And I think, she promised in her first campaign that she would be very open about any of the things, that she would be transparent. Her administration would be more transparent than any other administration in the history of Guam. And it is everything but transparent. It's very opaque. They don't answer questions that are apparently could be embarrassing. Well, the electors on Guam have the right to know what is going on. If nothing is illegal, why do they refuse to answer? I don't know. So, it's my old saying. It walks like a duck. It quacks like a duck, and it is a duck. So I'm going to be looking. I'm looking forward to look at Candid News' second and third expose on it. I think Troy did a very deep and serious investigation on this, and it's worth looking into it. And to put the pressure on the rest of the media for the next 3 weeks.
And let's be clear, Frenchie, to everybody out there who thinks that this is just mud that Candid could be dredging up, he is utilizing only public information that anybody, including reporters from the print media,
the other media,
and the other media, can do themselves. And he's done it successfully. And all you have to do is do a Freedom of Information Act or just go online and read the reports.
And he went to the Federal Reserve and asked for clarification. The Federal Reserve was very open. And they are very straightforward about what the rules are and what the conditions, some deposits can be done or not, and how things have to be handled. So he did his homework. He did his homework very well. And I think it's worth looking into it. And I would definitely encourage people to look at it and go back on YouTube and look at the things that have been done. And I think there's going to be a written version. I'm pretty sure. But that's why I think the governor doesn't want to debate, because she's afraid of those type of questions that could come up, and also she doesn't want a big turnout. She has every advantage is getting a low turnout. The lower the turnout, the better a chance to be reelected. The higher turnout, if people are starting to say, hey, I don't like this, I'm going to go and vote them out, like we did with the one Pat when she did give herself...
the midnight raises.
The midnight raises. Then... people might get pissed off and go out and vote. And I think the governor is afraid that people go out and vote. So much more reason for us to go vote.
Yes. Just for whatever the reason is, just come out and vote, people. But I also encourage people, if you don't know what you're doing, then maybe you should stay home. But we need more voters out here. Definitely the statistics are telling us a very disappointing and frustrating story. Frenchie, as always, I really appreciate your analysis and your perspective, and thank you for calling in. I'm going to go to have a great afternoon, Frenchie. All right, take it easy.
You're welcome.
All right, I'm going to go to Drive-By Jack, because he said I called him out. And I confess, I'm guilty. I called you out because I needed a protagonist. I needed somebody to blame.
Well,
how you doing, Drive-By?
That's not a problem for me.
No, tell him why. Tell him why you think I called you out.
Most people call me Drive-Through. Most people call me
Drive-Through. That's
call
right.
me Drive-By. It's both the same result.
Well, usually at the very end of the hour, you're Drive-By Jack.
But anyways, can I just talk a little bit about what Frenchie was talking about?
Sure, absolutely.
All right, so, I've discussed this with Bob a while back, and I said that one of the reasons that Governor Liu got elected was because the press was behind her. They're looking forward to a woman governor, the first ever, and to have it done on their media watch. I mean, that's a resounding clap for them. So, as much as we want to say that, yes, I got to kudos to Frenchie, because it's Frenchie and Jungle Watch that kept the abortion issue in the front burner during the election when Lou was running. Nobody else was doing. Everybody else was stuck with the Glock party down in Tumon.
Right? Is that amazing? Such a temporary incident was more negative than something that's permanent. The taking of a life.
And it was sad, It was sad that it went that way. But, the press had their hands in getting Lou elected, and they're going to have their hands again on if the results are the same. But, Frenchie and Jungle Watch did their job as much as they can. And, of course, you were over on the KLOG side, and, you had Senator Uggan, I remember interviewing him on that issue. And I asked him why he's still a part of the Democrat Party. And he kind of just wanted to almost leave the studio, it felt like, on the phone. But anyways, I just wanted to say that I talked to Bob about this, that, the press had a lot to do with Lou getting elected. And
they advocate for it, but I will always continue to say that no matter what the press says, the people here on Guam voted her in as well, and they know about her abortion stand, her pro-abortion stance. They know about her owning Bank of Guam and how there could be some questions. Not to say there's impropriety, but a conflict of interest is kind of like not in question here. There could be, and we've seen what happened during the pandemic of the question of a conflict of interest. But people are voting her in anyways. Why is that?
The signs was even before the Lou election. It was during when Obama was running his first term. A lot of Democrats were warned, even here in Guam, but yet a majority of the people voted on a straw poll for Obama to become president. Even Ray admitted. Ray, a Republican, admitted that he voted for Obama, for the straw. So, there's a lot of complications in voting, but let's just say that what really puts the kibosh, and I mentioned this on Ray's show this morning, because of early voting, it really puts the kibosh on debates. Because as early voting starts, and I think 300 people have already voted since yesterday, you're looking at 300 people that, why should they listen to a debate? Why should they watch it?
Good
it's
point.
not like they could go down and change their mind. Once they cast their votes, it's done. It's not like before where, we all went in on the same day, unless, you're absentee voting. We all had to come in on the same day and vote. Then I kind of figured, a debate close by or for those who are undecided makes sense. But with early voting, once you cast that vote, that's it.
Maybe that's why the campaigns have been so quiet, because it's not really, maybe they think it's a done deal already.
Well, we don't know yet. There was a low voter turnout for the primary, and I think Ray said there was 5,000 that did early voting in the primary.
Wow! And
I think just half of the people showed up half of the registered voters showed up for the primary, and 5,000. That's quarter of the people that voted during early voting. That the debates wouldn't even matter because they voted early. But as far I wanted to get to the issue about the Chinese coming in, and my main. Let's put it right now. Your complaint when I first called in, and I heard you, and you used the words that Bob never uses, and it's a bane. He avoids it at all costs. You said to paraphrase, but almost the exact words. You said the Chinese about being spies is something, quote, you wouldn't give the benefit of the doubt. Those words, Bob will never
He will never utter those out of his mouth except to say, I will never utter those words out of my mouth.
But you used it,
I am still a Padawan.
To these Chinese
I
coming
am
in
still
as
an
being
apprentice.
spies.
You're right.
As being spies. So you sort of like pinning the tail. I mean, I know why you wanted to call, because you wanted to get my, it was antagonizing, but I understand why you wanted to put me on the spot. But I just wanted to challenge you on that aspect.
Oh, I thought you were going to get me on something bigger. That's a technicality, Jack. What about the reason why I called you out, and it wasn't a call you out just to for the sake of it. You did mention, and I think you repeated it here on this show, but you did initially on Ray's show, say that we should be welcoming these immigrants because they have a skill that we need here on Guam, so we should be welcoming them in. And so the reason I called you out is because of Charles Stake's letter that said we got to be careful of that because human trafficking does include illegal labor practices.
So they're listening to Jack, and they're coming.
That's right.
Well, here's the problem. If these people aren't able to work, it really would drive them underground to those like prostitution, gambling, other sorts of sordid business, just to make a living because they can't work. My main point was if they were already vetted in Saipan, if they already had their biometrics done in Saipan, the best thing that we can do, because in honesty, they made it through the Guam version of the Squid Games. They came across dangerous waters, and so they're in the next level of the Squid Games. And we should, it's not an award, but say, hey, listen, you made it, you were vetted over. I'm all in agreement that if they weren't vetted in Saipan, if they were here, they have no biometrics done, that yes, they should be in some sort of custody. But if they're already vetted in Saipan and they're here, they're on the next stage of their journey, the best thing that we can do is not to drive them underground. The best thing we can do is to say, hey, do you have a skill, seamstress, cook, and get them employed, get them, legally employed.
Well, if I may invoke,
the same thing can be said
Jack,
about
real
what
quick.
that attorney says, that say, hey, if
Jack.
you don't do nothing, if you prevent them from working.
Jack, we have limited time real quick, but I want to invoke Bob Klitzkie here. I understand where you're coming from here. However, I think he thinks in terms of the legalities, and I'm going by what Charles Stake said here. The term illegal immigrant includes those who entered the U.S. without inspection, as well as those who entered with a legal visa that is no longer valid. So there might not be an avenue for people who used to have biometrics or anything like that as a legal immigrant, and then their visas have expired. That's something to look at also, because if there's no avenue, then your really good idea sometimes doesn't have anywhere else to go.
Here's the problem, and here it goes to the debates, because like I mentioned in Ray's show, there's two questions really that they ask in these short debates. One of them are leading questions, and the other one, the other form of questions, of course, are those that, gosh, I already forgot. Leading questions and...
It's okay, we have another hour, Jack.
And, oh gosh, it's been a long day.
Yeah.
But anyways, there's only two types of questions, leading questions and
direct.
Those that
I can't help you there,
antagonize
Jack.
the person. Yeah. I forgot what it's called now. It's just been a long time. But anyways, you need to accept his premises. So I would reject the premises that they were not, or their documents are expired. I would reject that. I want to see evidence that because if their documents are expired, by all legality, they should be in jail. But if they're not, if they're here and they just say, yeah, we got your biometrics here, you're not supposed to be here, but you're here, what's the next step? But I reject the idea that those documents are expired. You need to give me proof of that. You can't just say, oh, by the way, their documents are expired. I mean, I did a lot of piece work, a lot of gig work in California. I worked with a lot of people across the border that needed a job, that worked in the garment industry. I mean, those people who come from Saipan, the Chamorros from Saipan, the Chinese from Saipan that worked in the garment industry back in the day, those things are hard work, man. And yes, there are abuses, but it's better than to drive these people underground into prostitution, into drugs, into gambling.
Why is that the alternative, Jack? Maybe they're driving into underground tailor shops.
Well, if you prevent them from working, how are they?
They're still working. Listen, Jack, we have to go to a break, but I think you expressed your point very well.
Maybe it's a new Jack in the Box.
And if you can, new Jack in the Box.
Well, anyways, thank you.
All right. Have a great day, Jack. You're listening to Tall Tales here on KUSG 93.3 FM, The Point. My name is Jose. We're going to go to a real quick break, and we'll be right back with a few more minutes before the top of the hour halftime show.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to nectac, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tuman location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Just a few more minutes before the top of the hour. You're listening to Tall Tales with Jose Martinez. Bob Klitzkie will be returning soon. Daryl's in the production booth.
And Jack just called back.
Yeah.
He remembered what the other category of question is.
What is it?
He already mentioned leading question, right?
Yes.
Loaded question.
Oh, loaded. Leading and loaded. Got it. Thank you, Jack. Real quick, let's go over the card. All right. First on the card, we have, we did already, stake, parentheses, holder, versus human trafficking, parentheses, drive-through, Jack. We already went through that. Candidates versus innocent, helpless humans. Kamala Harris, and another word salad, versus parents. California versus BLT, which is also the Chicago Tribune versus states. And many of you probably read that article today I believe in the Post. We have free speech versus DPW. I'm not sure if we went over that. The Guam Code Annotated Title 5, Chapter 53. And some leftovers, Jim Eagle or Joe Eagle versus Jim Crow. Renamed that to Jim Crow. And then Ellenson versus Red Speech. Let's see here. We have somebody in the green rooms to go to. Oh, okay. Johnny, Utah, welcome to Guam. How you doing?
Hey, thank you. Off a day. I just wanted to comment real quick on what drive-through Jack was talking about.
Go for it.
And I think he would be 100% correct on his amnesty and, compassion towards the Chinese that are showing up on the beaches, but for one factor. And that is where we are at in our international relationships with China and even North Korea. Mm-hmm. With North Korea firing rockets off and with the tensions being so high with nuclear war, with our president talking about it, and with the escalation of the Air Force and the Navy with operations going on right now with Taiwan, and just the way the political world is right now in the Pacific, it's very tense. Mm-hmm. If it wasn't for that, I would agree completely with Drive-Thru Jack about giving those guys amnesty and saying, hey, let's help them find a job. Let's do that. But with the tensions and the situation the way they are right now, the odds are in favor of them being like some James Bond undercover agents from China.
With
this is what it is.
Yeah, except for they don't have a who's the guy that does all the cool gadgets for them?
Well, you don't know that. Who's the guy in the white truck that keeps picking them up?
Well, they don't have a good boat or vehicle. But yeah, you're right, and they're communicating somehow because that person is there.
No, but the numbers are increasing. They're coming more. There's more and more occurring.
Yeah,
something's going on. It's obvious.
And it usually isn't this many at one time. I mean, we always have one or two a year, maybe that we know of, maybe 4 or 5 of them, but not to this amount. And you're right, there is something that is going on. And usually, I know, if I may, Drive-Thru Jack has identified himself as a Catholic or Christian, reverted back to the faith, and the Catholic stance is about amnesty and taking in the immigrant, the homeless, and all that other stuff. But there is also instructions or guidance through the church of abiding by the law of the land, the state law or the law of the country, and that there's something to be said for that as well. We have to balance the two, because we don't want to just completely cut off people, no matter what. I mean, depending on their circumstances. But you're right. We don't know what's going on. There's a lot of things that are happening. And if they are here because of circumstances beyond their control, and they are generally here for work and stuff, it's just it's just coincidental. It's coincidental, and it's too bad that it's happening during this time of strife in this area.
Yes. If that's true, and pray to the Lord that Drive-Thru Jack is right and they're benign. They're not there to set up undercover operations and secretly sabotage Guam. But I'm sorry, but I'm black and white conservative thinker. I mean, I do see the gray area between. I can read the tea leaves, and that's pretty much what this is about, is reading the tea leaves, and I see it, and I think a lot of people there on Guam that have good
read the green tea leaves. Well, Johnny Utah, thank you for calling in. We're at the top of the hour, and we'll talk to you soon sometime. Take it easy. We do have another Joe in the green room. Don't go away. We're going to go to the big halftime show, and then some more Tall Tales after this.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Putin overestimated. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. That's what President Biden has said in a CNN interview about, among other things, the Russian invasion of Ukraine.
As Russia continued its missile assault on Ukrainian targets, President Biden said Vladimir Putin misjudged his ability to invade Ukraine and suppress its people.
I think he is a rational actor who's miscalculated significantly.
The president told CNN threats emanating from Russia could result in catastrophic mistakes.
Fox's Jill Nato reports the president has said the U.S. has contingencies in place should Putin make good on his threat to go nuclear. Mr. Biden also said, despite what his critics claim, he is competent and believes he's doing a good job. An MSNBC reporter says Pennsylvania's lieutenant governor and Senate candidate John Fetterman seem to have trouble understanding their conversations before an on-camera interview, during which he needed a teleprompter to read the questions. The reporter says Fetterman has lingering auditory processing issues from the stroke he suffered in May. Fetterman is in a tight race with Dr. Mehmet Oz, has insisted that he is fit to serve in the U.S. Senate. A police officer has been shot and killed in Greenville, Mississippi. 2 other people injured in what police described as a shootout. They've not officially released her name yet. A jury in Florida facing life or death deliberations starting today.
Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School gunman Nicholas Cruz already pleaded guilty to the school shooting, which left 17 people dead in 2018. A jury is now required to officially decide if the death penalty will apply. Prosecutors say Cruz's mitigating arguments are weak.
The defendant does not have any neurocognitive deficits.
Assistant State Attorney Mike Satz tells the jury Cruz's claims of abuse were not conclusive and argues they didn't impact his judgment that day.
Fox's Ed Brown. America is listening to Fox News.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Gas is expensive, so let the bank come to you. Through our remote deposit capture, you can deposit your checks into your account from your phone. And with our Dynamite Bank Pacific Visa debit card, you can use your money anytime, anywhere. It's the perfect combo.
Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender. Member FDIC. Crank it up.
The Justice Department has responded to former President Trump's appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court, trying to prevent prosecutors from examining some of the documents seized in the Mar-a-Lago raid until a special master has reviewed them. The federal attorneys telling the justices they shouldn't get involved in this case. The origins of the FBI's Trump-Russia investigation are under scrutiny in a trial that's begun in suburban Washington on charges brought by special counsel John Durham.
This trial deals with Igor Danchenko, charged with 5 counts of lying to the FBI. Durham insists that Danchenko was the primary source for British spy Christopher Steele, who compiled the widely talked about yet debunked Steele dossier full of salacious accusations about Donald Trump. The indictment alleges Danchenko lied to the FBI about his own intelligence sources and his connections to Steele. FBI agent Brian Otten testified the Bureau offered Chris Steele $1 million if he could corroborate his dossier. Steele told officials he could not.
Fox's David Spont. Durham was ordered to investigate the FBI's handling of the Russia probe by former Attorney General Bill Barr. The search for Quentin Simon, the 20-month-old toddler missing from his home in Savannah, Georgia for a week now. The Chatham County, Georgia Police Department says they've seized evidence which they hope will move the case forward. The boy's mother says he was gone and the door was open when she woke up last Wednesday morning. A court in Britain has ruled a lawsuit against singer Ed Sheeran can go forward over this song.
Thinking out loud, maybe we found love right where we are.
Sheeran is accused of copyright infringement for allegedly lifting parts of the melody from Marvin Gaye's hit, Let's Get It On. The lawsuit was filed by an investment banker who owns parts of the rights to that song. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Tell me about it, stud.
Circle K's Craft Beer and Whiskey Festival is back on Saturday, October 22nd. We rockin' and rollin' at the Dusatani Guam Resort from 2 to 10 p.m. Bring your friends and come dressed in your best grease costume to win up to $500 in cash and prizes. So bust out those leather jackets and 50-style outfits as we party the night away at Circle K's Craft Beer and Whiskey Fest. Don't be a square. Get your tickets now at craftbeerfestguam.com or cruise on by any 76 Circle K location. Now that's cool, baby.
We're already Pica's best radio station,
and we want to keep it that way. Voting for Pica's best radio station is on and underway. If you've already voted for The Point, thank you. If not, there's still time to get yours in. We're honored that many of you have nominated us again, and we'll keep looking for ways to keep you informed, up to date, and entertained. Fox News, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie and all the great talk shows from around the USA. Tell a friend and share your votes with all The Point's super advertisers. Thanks from all the stations of Choice Broadcasting.
What a halftime show, right, Daryl?
Hey,
we had the band, we had the dancers, we had the flag squad, also known as the Flag Corps, and we had the Rogues Gallery. I'm a tailgater, the Tall Tales Rogues Gallery, with the new addition of Tomas in there. We'll get you in the in the routine soon, but you too can become a tailgater Rogues Gallery entertainer. What's the word? I can't think of any words right now, but I am talking, so I'm saying something. Just go to www.thepoint.gu and look for the T-shirt. It kind of looks like this right here, the link minus the microphone. And behind that link,
and it's got the beard too.
The beard. Behind that link is a link to the website where you can order your own I'm a Tailgater T-shirt. Take a selfie, take a group picture after you buy your multiple shirts for your family and friends, and send it to the Points WhatsApp at 671-797-8255, and you too can be included in the Rogues Gallery halftime show entertainment.
I'm glad to see you've got your banner up.
My banner? Oh, which one? Oh, yeah, thepoint.gu. There it is. We have the website on there. Okay. I'm not the one that does that. We have a very sophisticated tech department, Ray Gibson, who does all the technical stuff. I didn't
make a comment.
Who does all the time. He can run this whole place by himself. He has 8 arms like an octopus.
He has us.
Everything. Well, he set all this up, and I gotta give it to him because it's amazing. What's with the technology here in this area? You got to agree, it's pretty cool in that.
Yeah. He set this up. It's
state of the art.
It is.
I've always wanted to say that.
But he can't run it himself.
No,
because he can't be here all the time.
He only has 2 arms.
And he has a show.
I was making up about the 8 arms. I hope nobody believed me. But anyways, we have in the green room another Joe who wants to say that he's going to reveal who he voted for. I'm sure we already know who he voted for, but good afternoon, another Joe. You just voted?
Yes, sir.
So nothing's going to change your mind between now and November 8th, is it?
The early voting, yes. I'm not exactly sure, but I know it's ongoing. It just started.
Mm-hmm.
So I went in and I did my duty, and everyone who communicated with me that they were pro-life, I'll say that much.
Okay.
And most of them. Well, and I don't know if I can say that. I'm a Republican, so because the Republican platform says
You can say that. You can say that.
Well, thank you.
We don't mind.
Thank you, buddy.
But also, because you've already voted, that means that you can't ask for the 2 hours off on Election Day. Or even the day off, right?
But it gave me the time to really think about what we're saying, and also I can still be supportive of the candidates if I can. But there's still some questions I have to clarify, because in the newspaper, I don't know if you all spoke about it earlier. They had the positions on the candidates.
We will get to that a little later here. So if you want to hang on and call back after we talk about that.
Sure.
Okay. I know you've been waiting for it.
I'll just keep listening. Thanks.
No problem. Thanks for calling in, Joe. I don't want him to give away everything, even though it's been out there since Sunday, anyways. But
let's roll it out methodically.
Let's get to it, because I was gonna start with the Kamala Harris versus her word salad versus parents, but
she's not on the ballot.
Yeah, she's on the card though. So thank God she's not on the ballot. She wasn't on the ballot before, anyways. Nationally, she just got chosen because of her skin color. And I'm not saying that
on the ballot,
because
and then she won.
That was exactly how it was chosen. We won, Joe. We did it. Okay, let's get to senatorial and gubernatorial candidates share their views on abortion. Yes, I know it's another discussion on abortion here on Tall Tales, but you know, at the risk of not really, honestly, I'm going to say it again. I don't think abortion is the main issue, or ought to be the main issue for the election this year or any year. It should be the issue isn't abortion in so much as the issue should be about life and innocent helpless humans. In all aspects of law and all aspects of life, but it has to start somewhere. And the best way that life starts somewhere is in the womb, because I guarantee that not a single person here was immaculately conceived.
Are you sure?
I'm positive. I am exactly 100% positive. Everybody had a mother and a father or biological parents, and they started out in the womb. None of them not even the quote-unquote test tube babies grew up anywhere else but in the womb. And so I'm going to get to gubernatorial candidates share their views on abortion. One of the most substantial questions faced by those who are chosen to fill the 37th Guam legislature this election season will be whether to allow, limit, or forbid the practice of abortion. And then it goes through the history of the Guam Heartbeat Act, about Roe versus Wade in this article. I'm just going to get down to the nitty-gritty here. Pacific Daily News asked Guam's 30 senatorial candidates about their stance on abortion as part of its election 2022 voters' guide. A number of candidates didn't respond to questions sent by the newspaper. The following questions were sent via email to all candidates. Number 1, if a bill to ban abortion on Guam was up for vote during a session of the 37th Guam legislature, would you vote for or against it? Number 2, if a bill to enshrine the right to abortion in Guam law was up for a vote during a session of the 37th Guam legislature, would you vote for or against it? And what do you believe is an acceptable cutoff date for the procedure, if any? Candidates were asked to limit their response to 50 words and were told that they did not need to respond to one question if they responded to the other. Several didn't respond directly to either question, referring to a referendum or to other positions on abortion. 2 follow-up messages were sent via email, along with several follow-up phone calls to candidates. Numbers provided on file with the Guam Election Commission. Just real quick, I see here candidate Sandra Regis said that abortion, she said this on Facebook here, abortion is a deal breaker for some people. And I'll get back to that statement she made there, because there's a lot of truth to that, but what I am saying is that it is not the political issue I think a lot of people want it to be or ought to be. Okay. They also said here that Guam's next governor will also have a significant say on the abortion question. Public Law 2134, a 1990 ban on most forms of abortion, remains in Guam's legal code. While the law previously was found unconstitutional, the Office of the Attorney General has told the newspaper the governor of Guam may seek to dissolve the injunction of the decades-old law and have it enforced. Actually, the Attorney General seeks the dissolve of the injunction. And
but only when the governor indicates by moving her finger, right?
No, he doesn't answer to that. He can say whether he's going to or not. Not. He has nothing to do with the governor. And so Judge Klitzkie, Bob Klitzkie, has spoken about this already. There is a precedent set where you can ask for the injunction to be lifted. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Attorney General Camacho said there is no instance, because once the law has been deemed unconstitutional, it stays there. And that isn't true according to the Indiana clause or something like that he found. I'll leave that to Judge Klitzkie, or I'll look more into what he was citing. But let's get to the candidates. Oh, and then we'll get to the gubernatorial team's answers to those questions previously stated.
On that last point, does that mean that the injunction still is in effect?
Yes, because the Attorney General did not ask for it to be lifted.
Okay.
Yeah. And only the Attorney General can ask for that to be lifted.
Got it.
or start those procedures, from my understanding.
Right.
So the Democratic senatorial candidates, and I'm going to interject my a little bit of opining in between here, because I want to be clear on what I understand some of these opinions are from these candidates. Incumbent Tina Rose Bunya Barnes. While I personally choose life as a young mother, I believe any fundamental question impacting women's reproductive rights must be decided by the people at a referendum. To be clear, I would support any bill placing questions regarding abortion before the electorate. Okay, so let's also be clear here. I hear a lot from women, and I'm doing this at the risk of someone saying you're mansplaining or who are you to say anything because you're a male. Well, we're talking about innocent, helpless humans here. And that's the only people that I'm concerned about.
And we're also talking about the right of citizens to have a say in the...
Let me finish, though. Let me finish my points here. So when I hear somebody say, I personally choose life, but that means that they will allow other people to make a choice of whether or not to kill the innocent, helpless human, I wonder why they would say it that way. Would they say that about any other instance in our life where we have to protect innocent, helpless humans? Are they willing to say, I personally don't believe in killing this person who is costing a lot to the government, but I'm not going to have a say, or I don't want to have a say in telling other people whether they should terminate somebody else's life.
I hear something else too.
Okay.
I hear I was elected, but no, I don't want to make this decision. You do.
That was the second thing I was going to get to here, because a people's referendum starts with electing those officials who represent us. And that's the Senate, and that's the legislature. If we want to go around making referendums out of all the hard choices out there because you don't want to make them, don't run for representative of the island. Plain and simple. There are a lot of difficult choices to be made in forming laws, and there might be a lot of easy ones, but if you just choose to do the easy ones and leave the difficult ones up, you might as well wash your hands like Pontius Pilate did and say, I'll leave it up to you. I didn't kill him, you killed him. And that's what essentially they're saying.
Yeah, her job is to write a bill.
Now, I'm not picking on Tina Moon Barnes specifically. She's just number one on this list here. And I'm going to repeat that same thing whenever I hear this answer. Number 2, William Mark Parkinson. He said, number 1, I would vote against a bill that attempted to ban abortion, and that's his decision. 2, I would support a bill that would enshrine abortion as a right. My personal cutoff date would be the viability standard set forth by Planned Parenthood versus Casey. And again, I'm going to say, you want to argue viability, then you better be prepared to argue viability for every single instance of humanity, from birth, from conception to birth to end of life. Because if you decide that one group of humans do not deserve the right to life because of a viability standard, then you are opening up the grounds for everybody else to be judged on the same standard. But I do appreciate that you had made a decision to go either vote against or vote for a bill, because that tells me that you are not afraid to give an answer. Speaker Therese Terlahi, incumbent, did not respond. Roy Kanata, I would vote against it. He's talking about voting against an abortion ban. And then he says, I will sure to protect a woman's right to choose. I believe abortion services should be treated equally to any medical service we offer on island. Government should not restrict any medical service that will promote the health of its people, including abortion services. And which I would say, Roy Kanata, before you talk about medical services, please define what an abortion is first, because if you're going to talk about the health of a people, it ought not include the termination of the life of a helpless, innocent human being. That is not health.
Elective termination.
Elective termination, the intentional termination. That is not a medical service. That is a death sentence. Sarah Thomas Nettedog did not respond, and then the paper decided that they were going to respond for her. And I'm not going to read that because she decided not to respond this time. And we're going to go with the responses that they gave for this article. Amanda Lee Shelton did not respond to Guam PDM. And they mentioned that she is the co-sponsor of the pending 2022 Guam Heartbeat Act, which they referenced at the beginning of this article. Dwayne St. Nicholas, number 7. I will vote against any measure that would restrict a woman's right to choose. Thank you for saying you restrict the measure, but you're not voting against a woman's right to choose. You're voting against the protection of an innocent, helpless human. Again, that's my opinion right here. Number 2, talking about an enshrinement of abortion on Guam. Unless under special circumstances, the pregnancy may not be terminated if it's older than 24 weeks, unless it will protect the life or health of the pregnant woman. Okay, so he's talking about the cutoff time for abortion if he does enshrine abortion on Guam in the 37th, and he gives a time here, which I'm always interested in why lawmakers cite weeks and times without citing any other threshold. Like, is it just a number, or is there a reason for that threshold? Number 8, Fred Bordallo. He too would vote against a ban on abortion. And then 2, he would vote for the right for women. I believe that this is a decision made between a woman and her health physician about time lengths of when the procedure should be done during the earliest initial stages of pregnancy. So again, he cites a threshold without citing the reason why, and just say whether you would vote for the right for abortion or not. When you give thresholds like this, you're actually telling us you really shouldn't say anything at all. Again, this is a decision made between a woman and her health physician, but there is also a father involved. And if there is no father involved or another man who's willing to take responsibility for their pregnancy, there is a primary person involved, and that is the innocent, helpless human. I'm going to keep repeating that because abortion terminates the life of an innocent, helpless human. Candidate Angela Santos, she answered number 1, if there was a bill to ban abortion on Guam, I would vote against it. Again, I appreciate an answer just like that. Doesn't mean I agree with it. 10, Kelly Marsh Titano. She answered to the question number 1, I will oppose any measure that restricts a woman's right to choose unless it is submitted for a public referendum. And we're going to go again, like you said, Daryl, public referendum means that I don't want to be a senator and I wash my hands of any difficult legislation that has to go up for vote. My opinion. Daryl Christopher Barnett did not respond. Incumbent Jose Pedro Terlahi. I'm personally pro-life, but I do not believe my personal beliefs on such a personal matter should be imposed upon anyone else. And what's that imposition? How does he feel about the imposition upon the innocent human life? However, I have and will continue to support legislation which supports adoption services, foster children health care, and support to mothers who choose to give birth. You mean life. And then 2, on the enshrinement of abortion, I think this question should be put to public referendum. Again, candidates who are running, if you keep saying put these hard, difficult questions to referendum, you're telling us that you don't have the gumption to make a decision as a representative of the people. Joe Shimizu, San Augustine incumbent. Number 1, on the anti-abortion bill if it went forth in the 37th. My vote would depend on the contents of the bill. I am anti-abortion, but I cannot support any measure that does not allow exceptions for victims of rape or incest or if deemed medically necessary. Those are decisions made by women, law enforcement, and medical professionals. Okay. Again, the threshold of the decision to be made by law enforcement is interesting. That's the first time I've heard of an interjection that the decision to terminate the life of a helpless, innocent human could be made by law enforcement. But I'm just thinking that he's just put it in there because of the sentence of rape he says here. I'm going to go into this just a little bit here. The exceptions, and I've heard a lot of this. I am pro-life, but I don't support if it doesn't allow for exceptions. That's a very difficult thing to talk about because we all know the horrendous crime of rape, the horrendous crime of incest, and I'm going to separate that from the medically necessary part that he put in there because they're not equitable or equal. I am pro-life. I am anti-abortion because I am for, and I'm going to repeat again, that innocent, helpless human. No circumstance changes the fact that the termination of a life is happening to an innocent, helpless human. And as difficult as it is to talk about, or to even discuss the product of a rape, that child is still an innocent, helpless human. The product of that incest is still an innocent, helpless human. And we do know that it's a very sensitive subject and a very difficult subject to talk about. However, life is full of difficult subjects and difficult choices. One that I will always argue, when it comes to an innocent, helpless human, that person should not be a victim, or their termination of life should not be the solution to the difficult challenges and circumstances. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying that it's black and white in the sense that you either do it or you're painted for life. But if you start to consider what that decision really is, why would one claim to be pro-life yet make an exception? What did that innocent, helpless human do to render such a unjust sentence on their life? Jonathan J. Savaris. Number one, he would vote against an anti-abortion bill. Number two, if there was a enshrinement for abortion, he believes that the decision should be discussed between a woman, her family, and a physician. So I guess he's referring to at what point do abortions stop. And then Senator Sabina Perez, incumbent, she did not respond. The paper gave a previous answer she gave before, but because she didn't respond, I'm going to leave it to that. So that's my take on the Democrat candidates. We'll go and talk about the Republican candidate responses after we take this break. We're going to the 7th inning stretch. You're listening to Tall Tales here on KUSG 93.3 FM. Don't go away.
Hoffa? What do you mean you aren't registered to vote? I'm telling you, if you don't register soon, you'll lose your voice in how our island is run. Lucky for you, Action Pack has a dope voter registration party called Hard Rock the Vote at the Hard Rock Cafe on October 14 from 7 p.m. to midnight. The only way to get in is with proof of voter registration. Check Action Pack Guam on Facebook and IG for details. Oh, and hey, on Election Day, make sure to vote. Voting is a vibe.
It's your turn to take action. Join Action Pack at actionpackguam.com.
Half a day. This is Clara Manglania from Security Title. A power of attorney can be a useful tool in a real estate transaction, but if abused, it can result in devastating loss. Choosing your representative should be done with the utmost care and should be very specific about the powers being granted. To mitigate loss, the team at Security Title confirms with the owner prior to using a power of attorney to sell the property. Each transaction is unique. Let the professionals at Security Title use our experience to facilitate a secure closing. We are here to help.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training every morning on The Ray Gibson Show.
Does your physical workplace have an impact on the mental outlook of workers, their overall job satisfaction, and their productivity? I'm Jerry Roberts, and at 7:20 a.m. on The Ray Gibson Show, we'll talk about that and what you might want to do about it. It's The Extra Point here on 93.3.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point by Jerry Roberts at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts on The Ray Gibson Show on 93.3 The Point.
Seventh inning stretch. We have 2 more innings to go before the end of this program, this episode of Tall Tales. My name is Jose Martinez. Thank you for joining. Thank you for sticking around. We're getting to that senatorial responses from the PDN question on their views on abortion. The first question they sent to the candidates was, if a bill to ban abortion on Guam was up for a vote during a session of the 37th Guam legislature, would you vote for or against it? The second question, if a bill to enshrine the right to abortion in Guam law was up for a vote during a session of the 37th Guam legislature, would you vote for or against it? And what do you believe is an acceptable cutoff date for the procedure, if any? We went through the Democrat candidate responses. Now we'll get through the 15 Republican senatorial candidate responses. Number one, and I'm assuming this is how they are ordered on the ballot, in the order that they put it on here. Number one is Frank Flores Jr., Frank Flores Blas Jr., incumbent, who did not respond. Again, the PDN put a previous response, and I'm going to go on to the next candidate. Michelle Hope Titano, number one. I would vote for it. Yes, to ban abortion on Guam. Thank you, and God bless. Vincent A.B. Borja, number three. Yes, with exceptions. He didn't write what those exceptions are. And again, I put number one, he's saying yes to a ban on abortion. If you're going to have those exceptions, why exceptions, and why is that innocent, helpless human any different from any other circumstance? What did they do? Telo Taitagui, incumbent, did not respond to this round of questions, and they had put in a previous response, and I'll let you guys go and read up on that. Ian Dale Catling, his question to number one was, the issue of pro-life, pro-choice is thousands of years old, and over the course of thousands of years, neither side has produced an infallible argument. I'm in favor of letting the community decide through referendum, just like how they did in the state of Kansas. Well, you're not in Kansas anymore. I just wanted to say that. Number one, Ian Dale, I appreciate you giving an answer, but pro-life, pro-choice is a euphemism and a misnomer. It is pro-abortion, anti-abortion. The pro-choice side usually is designated for the pro-abortion side, but there are choices that can be made in the pro-life side. So both sides, I think, are pro-choice. But if you want to get down to what the real issue is, it's about pro-abortion, anti-abortion. What makes it complicated are people. Thousands of years old argument. Neither side has produced an infallible argument. And that's, yeah. Let's move on to Christopher M. Duenas, incumbent. He said he would vote in favor of an anti-abortion bill. Jesse Anderson Lujan, number one, I am pro-life. I will vote for it as long as it includes exceptions for rape, incest, and if the mother's life is in danger. Let's get to the medical thing first, because I believe it was Senator Shimizu who talked about medical necessity. From what I understand, in most circumstances, if not a majority of them, there has been rarely ever an incident where it was medically necessary to terminate the life of a child for the sake of a mother's life being in danger. That being said, a lot of times the life in danger part is because the pregnancy is ectopic. I might be mispronouncing it, but that means that the life of the fetus, of the human, is no longer there, no longer alive, and so that fetus's or dead fetus's presence in the womb is very dangerous and poisonous to the mother. That is not an intentional abortion. That is not even discussed in this discussion. It is a distraction. It is something that opponents, pro-abortion proponents, put in there to muddy up the water. And I would please ask these candidates to stop saying medical necessity as if we're talking about it, because we're not. The medical necessity part is not in question. It's not even a part of any of the anti-abortion bills. As far as rape and incest, I've already talked about that. What difference to the guilt of the innocent, helpless human changes between an intentional abortion or somebody who was conceived from rape? As far as part two, he said he would vote against enshrining abortion. He said, I would not vote. This is Jesse Anderson Lujan. Said, I would not vote for legislation to legalize abortion on Guam. I am pro-life. Sandra Reyes Sao, who I indicated earlier, she said that that sometimes, let's see here, abortion is a deal breaker for some people. She said, I would vote to ban abortion. The saying, my body, my choice. I get that it's the woman's body, but the baby growing inside of the woman is not their body. Who is going to be the voice for the baby inside of the woman's womb? I would vote to ban abortion because taking a life is murder. Let's go to candidate Thomas J. Fisher. I would have to see a bill before I would respond to the question. I think that's a really good, honest answer. Let's read the bill first. Number 2, 90% of court's decisions following the overturn of Roe versus Wade were determined by men. I would prefer a referendum which would include the opinion of women. I'm not sure why the distinction has to be made between men and women when it comes to protecting life. Do we only talk about, let's say, if someone of Irish descent or Iranian was murdered, can only Iranian people talk about that murder? Can only Ukrainian people talk about what's going on in Ukraine right now? Can people who are devastated by flooding in the Midwest can only be discussed by people who are from the Midwest? Why is it that we limit ourselves to these very narrow viewpoints when we're discussing innocent, helpless humans? The discussion of saving the life of anti-abortion must be and ought to be open for everybody. Number 10, Joanne Marie Brown. As a pro-life supporter, I am in favor of tightening up the abortion laws. Unfortunately, the Guam Heartbeat Act of 2022 has not been advanced beyond the public hearings or forwarded to be discussed and debated on session floor. Number 11, Shirley Sam Mabini Young did not respond, and the paper has a previous answer she's given. I'm not going to read it here just for time's sake. Marianne Silva Tyron. I will start by stating that I am pro-life. However, before I make a decision on how I would vote on any proposed legislation, I would want to understand all of the provisions in the bill. And while I may support a proposed ban, there are exceptions I wish to include, such as exceptions when a mother's life is at risk. We've talked about that. And when the expectant mother is a victim of rape and or incest. And we've talked about that as well. Again, I'm asking the question, why is that innocent, helpless human now deemed to be terminated because of the crime of its father? 13, Bistra Ivanova Mendiola. The abortion conversation is very difficult because of the way the public discussion is locked into pro-life versus pro-choice. I agree, because it's not those two decisions, or those two, they're not polar opposites. There's a very simplified and misleading way to frame a very serious and complex issue. It polarizes both sides to extremes, tending to silence those who can't identify fully with either option, which is most Americans. That was kind of a no answer, but I understand where she's coming from, because there is, it's very difficult to talk one-on-one with people who have divergent opinions on abortion, because it's a very heated and emotional issue. If we take ourselves out of it and stop trying to cater to our emotions and just look at that innocent, helpless human, perhaps we can look at it objectively. Like I said earlier before in previous shows, if we can talk about abortion by laying groundwork of we agree what an abortion is, then we can probably start from there, because we certainly know what abortion is not, or intentional elective abortion. We're going to number 14, Ken Leon Guerrero. Number 1, as far as a abortion ban, he says he will vote against it. Number 2, as far as enshrining abortion law, it all depends on the language of the bill. Just as Bill 291-36 was badly written, I am sure that there is a strong possibility that a right to abortion could be as badly written. And he's talking about the cutoff date. is a decision best left to the mother, father, and doctor based on their situation, not a politician with no skin in the game. Yeah, as far as a politician with no skin in the game, people who write laws, legislation, also write laws based on morality, also write laws based on the protection of other humans. What is the difference between an innocent helpless human who isn't born and an innocent, helpless human that we can see face to face? Are there different classes of human beings? I think that's the question we've asked throughout all of history, throughout all wars, throughout every injustice done to all groups of humans. Are they equal, or some better than others? Candidate David Walter Crisostomo did not respond. As far as the gubernatorial candidates, I really don't want to go too much into opining on their answers because we pretty much know, and we'll probably get into Lou Guerrero's answer on Friday. And they said here, this is the question they asked the gubernatorial team. On the 1990 abortion ban, both gubernatorial teams were asked, number one, would you seek to have the injunction on Public Law 2134 dissolved? And two, would you sign off on a bill to remove the statute from Guam's books? The Lou Guerrero Tenorio team said, number one, no, they will not seek for an injunction to be lifted. And then number two, yes, the Leon Guerrero Tenorio administration has always stood by the freedom of women to make their own decisions about their reproductive health in conjunction with their loved ones, medical and spiritual advisors as they see fit. These decisions should not be dictated by any government or any one group of individuals. And as far as the Camacho Ada team, as far as the first question of the dissolving of the injunction of Public Law 2134, in our system of government, the Office of the Attorney General has the authority to seek a dissolution of an injunction on behalf of the government of Guam. Such an act could be deliberated by the judiciary of Guam. If there was great harm to our citizens due to this law or other laws of Guam, I would seek the assistance of the Attorney General to find resolution to these important matters. Okay, that was a word salad there. But they were very clear that they would seek a dissolvement of an injunction. And then number two, would you sign off on a bill to remove the statute from Guam's books? Two, we remain committed to defending the unborn and will continue to support, endorse measures that protect babies in the womb. All life matters. And those are the Democrat and Republican responses, including the gubernatorial candidates and senatorial candidates on their views on abortion. Yeah, Sandra Reyes, it is a do or die or a deal breaker for most people. I understand from my perspective, the deal breaker is not so much the issue of abortion, but if a candidate is unwilling to protect the very beginning of life, all of the issues that have to do with life and protecting life doesn't seem to really make sense if we're not willing to protect that life from the very, very beginning. And that's my take on it.
There was a caller, didn't want to go on the air, poses a question. He's not expecting you or I to know the answer, but perhaps somebody in the audience does know. He wanted to know what was the percentage of abortions that have been logged, documented, that have been involving women of Chamorro racial extraction.
The most recent data that was provided, I think all the way up to September, the end of September of this year, the racial designation is now Pacific Islander. But before, I think there was about a 60% to almost 70% Chamorro, identified as Chamorro mothers who procured an elective abortion. Another interesting fact is a lot of people think it's young single women who are procuring abortions, and the majority of those in the past years have always been married women. There's a saying in Christianity that says the cure for abortion is marriage, and here on Guam that is not so. It is very disheartening to know that those who are married don't know the circumstances behind it. are the ones procuring abortion, and they're women that are above that age of looking for a career or other things like that. There's a lot of those myths that are busted if you just look at the statistics that are coming out.
Yeah, thank you for that. I wasn't sure, but I'm glad you know.
Some of the stuff. You know, there is a website called helpthemboth.org, which is focuses on a lot of the laws and discussion of abortion here on Guam. It is a great resource to look for. I'm not sure how often it is updated now, but there is a lot of stuff on there from previous laws and legislation that deal with abortion and also care for a child, including a link to talk about the Infant Right to Life Act that we always talk about here every Friday. Lou Langreo. Let's take a real quick break, Daryl. We're going to go to Churchill Downs, the home stretch, and we'll be right back right after this. Tall Tales on KUSG 93.3 FM.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tuman location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Gas is expensive, so let the bank come to you. Through our remote deposit capture, you can deposit your checks into your account from your phone. And with our Dynamite Bank Pacific Visa debit card, you can use your money anytime, anywhere. It's the perfect combo.
Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender. Member FDIC. Crank it up.
The home stretch, Tall Tales, a few more minutes before the end of the program, a little over 10 minutes. I'm just going to go through, there's a question here.
There was a caller
yeah.
who wanted to remind you, because he said you would know about this. The numbers were in the Esperanza Project.
Yes. Oh, very good comment. That's right. Esperanza Project here on Guam, a non-religious organization that compiled and also pushed for legislation on protecting innocent, helpless humans. Did a great, incredible job when they were very active. There's a little bit, there are a few that are still active in the organization, and they did compile a lot of videos, all based off of legislative testimonies for pro-life and anti-abortion issues.
And he said that the report was posted on Jungle Watch.
Yes.
Okay.
All intertwined. Jungle Watch does a great job of reporting on these and linking to some of these resources. I'm going to go address this question by Sherry Arati, who said she's playing devil's advocate. Don't be a devil's advocate. Be God's advocate with a question that you have one answer. But I'm not going to go. I don't want to go there. She's asking on the instance of rape and incest, what about the mental and emotional well-being of the raped women? I can't speak to any experience on that, not even knowing somebody who was raped or a victim of incest. And I know a lot of people will say, well, then you don't have a say at all. I will have this general statement to make. It is incredibly heart-wrenching, gut-wrenching to know something like that has happened. Incredibly heart-wrenching, gut-wrenching. I agree that a woman to know that their perpetrator, the rapist, has been a part of what is inside of them, and it is a reminder. But what I do know is that I've read countless testimonies of children who were born and conceived and born from rape, who have led lives not different from any other person's life, no matter how they were conceived. that child was allowed to be born because they were not punished for the crimes of their father. The psyche of the woman, that's very important. And there ought to be a support, family support, friend support, all sorts of support for that person, individual. But you're compounding the crime and the violence of rape and incest with another violent act. And that's the taking of the life of that innocent human who never asked to be conceived, but is here. Like all of us, we didn't have a choice in the matter of whether we wanted to be conceived, but we are here. And that's the person that I'm looking to. Yes, there is a challenge, but I would also suggest, I also put in that whether there are lots of challenges to mothers who conceive babies willingly and intentionally and by purpose. We've heard of postpartum depression before. We've heard of other instances where women have gone through trauma, giving birth to someone that they celebrated, haven't been conceived, and are looking forward to. And we have programs for that. We have protections for babies who are born and who have mothers experience postpartum depression. So why is it that we feel shackled or unable to do anything for the women who have been raped or victims of incest, that our only choice we want to do and only exception we want to do is to terminate the life of that baby? Why is that the only option? So let's go beyond a helplessness mentality and say that we can move beyond this mindset of wanting to terminate the life, again, of an innocent, helpless human. So, yeah, thank you for that question, Sherry. Good question. All righty. Let's go.
We're talking about policies.
Mm-hmm.
And if there are policies, you're talking about a policy on abortion. How about policies on mental health support, emotional health support?
That's huge. That's very important.
Foster care support.
Mm-hmm.
However, those are services.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing up foster care. I want to make a real quick comment that I've done online before. I really am frustrated and quite tired of people testifying in support of abortion by citing foster children and children who are products of abuse. These children deserve dignity. They do not need to be put into this conversation or discourse about abortion as if their plight in life would have been solved if their lives were terminated before they were born. So before you go and testify in any bill situation that has to do with abortion, think twice about who you're propping up and using to support your stance on pro-abortion, because foster children do not deserve to know that their lives were once considered less than the person testifying despite their existence. All right, we have a couple people in the green room. We had another Joe you called earlier. I'm going to go to Arkeith, who is going to opine on the same thing. Good afternoon, Arkeith.
Good afternoon.
How are you doing?
First, I want to compliment you on your response to the earlier question. I thought that was really very well put.
Thank you.
And second, in regards to the women who have experienced the trauma of rape, yes, there is no doubt that the fetus inside you is a constant reminder. But there's something we have the ability to detect, and if a woman has unfortunately been raped, what prevents her doing frequent pregnancy tests early, immediately following and for the next couple of weeks, so that if she does discover that she's pregnant, but only 2, 3, 4 weeks in or what have you, most or a lot of folks, even on the conservative side, are willing to deal with, is that the word I'm looking for?
Cope?
An abortion really early on before the heartbeat?
I think what you're talking about is something similar to what they call the day after pill or something.
Well,
where
yeah, I mean, there's also you bring up a good point. There's the day after pill, and then even then, fine. Pregnancy tests they're reasonably cheap enough. Go to a crisis center and have them just disseminate pregnancy tests. And do it for a couple weeks to make sure that that you weren't pregnant. And you've got 15 weeks before I guess that's sort of the current law in a lot of states. Certainly, you should figure out by that point whether you're pregnant or not.
Yeah, I have a personal opinion on these early, just trying to determine if that fetus, that conceived fetus, is worthy of life at conception, a couple weeks in, 4 weeks in, or at the heartbeat. I know that people use a threshold of a heartbeat as something that's tangible, but why is that the only tangible evidence? What about the evidence of the combination of the sperm and egg?
I agree. It's this subject is not cut and dry and never will be. And I'm just sort of throwing something out there.
Right. I appreciate that. I understand that. And again, I'm not. I really don't wish this as a judgment on other people's opinions, just as a way to give you insight into my thought process, that I'm not rigid to the fact. There is a reason behind my reasoning and my answers, and they've been formed for many years. This is not automatic for me. I do extensive reading and praying on it, and I hope that these senators do the same thing if ever they're put with a question or legislation that deals with something like this. Keith, thank you for your call. I really appreciate it. We're at the top of the hour, the end of the program. We'll be back more tomorrow with more Tall Tales. My name is Jose Martinez. Have a good evening, everybody, and stay safe. Let's go, Brandon.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
New attacks on Ukraine. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. Missile and drone attacks targeting sites across Ukraine for a second straight day Tuesday in retaliation for the bombing of a Russian bridge. President Biden, in an interview with CNN, says he believes President Putin's invasion of Ukraine was an overreach.
I think he thought he was going to be welcomed with open arms, that this has been the home of Mother Russia in Kyiv, and he was going to be welcomed. And I think he just totally miscalculated.
President Biden says he believes Putin has committed war crimes. During an online meeting Tuesday, leaders of the G7 industrialized nations heard a plea from Ukraine's President Zelensky for additional military help.
The Group of Seven, in a statement, condemned Putin's nuclear rhetoric and Moscow's latest missile attacks on Ukrainian citizens, but no detail on what new steps the West is taking to deter Putin.
Fox's Jackie Heinrich at the White House. A fired San Antonio police officer, James Brennan, has been charged with aggravated assault for the shooting of an unarmed teenager who was sitting in his car eating a hamburger last week. 17-year-old Eric Cantu remains in critical condition. A police officer has been shot and killed in Greenville, Mississippi in a